What is up, guys? It is Camo Drone here, and welcome back to a brand new episode. Today, we're back at the Hello Neighbor Mystery Series. Now, this is sadly going to be the end of part 1 for this series of the Hello Neighbor Mystery Series. But don't worry, there's going to be a part 2 coming out, because when Hello Neighbor 2 comes out, it'll be ready for us. It's like it'll be made for us to explore and theorize what's going to happen and what's happening and to understand the game. Now, we've talked a lot about this game and many theories. My personal favorite one so far was the Shadow Guy. Now, the Shadow Guy story, because it explains a lot about Act 3. Now, today, we're not only doing just one theory that's, probably gonna be like, why, I'm talking about, like, who the kids really were. Now, I already know that, and I'm going to mention that in today's video, but that's only like a quarter half of this story, I believe. But today, no, we're doing something different. We're combining all our theories into one big story. That's right, guys. And Hello Neighbor's entire story explained. Now, I've been waiting to do this for a long time, so what are we waiting for? Let's get started. So now we are not going to go into any of the acts yet, because it actually doesn't start in the regular Hello Neighbor. It starts in this game called Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek. Now, you see two kids playing together. You can see that there's the neighbor with gloves off. He has a happy life. He has a wife. You could actually see her face in the trailer of Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek, actually, and it's like crazy. It's like revealing so much. It shows like the wife's face and how they moved in. And so they had kids, and they were and here's a hint of what's gonna happen to them. Remember those missing posters? That's them. Now let me talk more about the story. So they're just two wonderful kids having an imagination. They always love to go up in their room and play imagination games. Like, for example, the cops and robbers game where you have to get the money, or the wilderness game where you have to get all the stuffed animals. And like, after you play those games, you have some fun. You have delicious meals with your family, delicious home-cooked meals. It's like pretty much a great time, right? Well, here's when things go downhill. You see, when the kids were playing, once the kids stopped playing cops and robbers, they realized that their parents weren't home yet. They noticed that something was up, and they just tried to take their mind off it by playing another imagination game. So they played this game where the entire place is they're playing Firefighter. And when they looked, they still weren't there. And finally, after a long amount of waiting, the neighbor comes home with the wife's purse. He drops down to his knees, and the kids can already tell what's wrong. They are so sad about this loss that they had. Now, the girl thinks it's just as sad as hell. Now let's talk about all the perspectives, actually, on how they all feel. The neighbor, he feels torn apart inside. As you can see, the neighbor couldn't even walk as soon as he stepped into the house. They spent a lot of their lives together, hoping that would last until the very end, but it didn't. Now, Now, the girl was sad. Like, just regularly sad when you normally, have a loss. But the boy had, just got unplugged for a second. Anyways, the boy, on the other hand, had a different feeling of this story. He wasn't accepting. He wasn't accepting that his mother was gone. Now, normally that would happen, right? But he didn't let go of this. He didn't let go of this ever. And he got mad, and the sister came up to check on him, and the boy was wrapped up in a blanket and was very mad. And she asked if she wanted to play another imagination game to make him feel better. He unaccepted at first, but then he realized he said to himself in his mind, I suppose I could play a little game. This is going to be a lot of fun. So they play a game of zombies for some reason, like zombies, brains, and everything. And once they're done, well, they weren't done, but when the daughter was trying to get all the brains, which you're supposed to collect all the brains and put them in the basket, the boy went rogue. You see, he had the gun because he was the hunter after her. I think actually the girl's name is Maya. So Maya was trying to get the last brain, but the boy lost control. He started shooting the Nerf gun at her over and over again, non-stop. She begged to stop, but he would have no mercy. The dad calls us over to them over to different dinners suddenly, not knowing what's going on, but did not question. Now the boy got even more angry because he remembered when normally the mom would call them to dinner. So he remembered his mom, and he got so mad that he threw it down and just ran away. But Maya went to the kitchen table, and the boy came in later and started messing with her, and finally had to be sent to the room. And Maya tried to stop him from being like this, but the neighbor, I think his name is Mr. Peterson, didn't want her to deal with that right now. But she did not listen. After a while, she came back up. The boy was in the room once again. They decided to play a game of hide and seek. Non-imagination. No more playing. Now, they imagined that the entire place was huge. That Maya had to go through thousands of ginormous obstacles, and she was so tiny. Kind of like in this game, Hello Neighbor. You have to go through this phase where you're very tiny, and you have to obstacle through the cabinet to unlock the double jump. And so once you complete that, she finds her doll, which, if you don't know, the boy hid from her, so that way she wasn't playing games anymore when she played hide and seek. And the boy, once she found the bowl, she was on the edge of the entire roof, and when she turned around, the boy was there. Now he looked mad and slapped the doll out of her hands, and suddenly he bumped into her and she fell. When he looked at what he'd done, his face, he couldn't believe it. First he lost one, now he lost another. As Maya, she couldn't believe that her brother had done this. Now, after she had shortly fallen to her death, his dad found out, and for punishment, locked him in the basement. Which is, there's proof of that, because there it looks like the basement that you had to go in Act 1. Looks like there's someone been living down here with a bed with all this food and drinks. You'd think someone must be living down here. And I think that was the boy. Now, let's move on to this game. Then, we continue to Act 1. Where we're a kid named, I think, Nick. Yeah, we're a kid named Nick. Beach ball. And we're playing with our beach ball. And Nick is playing with the beach ball. I can't even speak. So Nick is playing with the beach ball, just having fun. And he happens to live in a neighborhood a neighbor lives in. So, as you can see, he chases after his beach ball that he's kicking, having some fun, far away from his house. Now, he runs up to here and gets the ball. But he notices something's wrong, and he sees the boy from Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek, the same one who pushed my off, who was in anger, that his mother died, was there, and he saw that he's being kept in the basement. Now Nicky was horrified. He never knew that in his neighborhood there would be such a terrible thing like this. So he decided, hey, I should go investigate, because whatever he's doing is obviously up to no good. So he does just that. He investigates and keeps finding more and more clues. He jumps from like parts of roof to parts of roof, breaking the windows, discovering things behind the paintings. And he kept finding things in keys and keys and keys and clues and clues. For example, he finds his car keys, which happens to be what I'm getting right now. So then he didn't. So like he had to go through all of those obstacles. And he got the magnet. Oh my. Now he had to run back a few times. And let's just cut to the chase here. He finds what he's been hiding and goes into his basement, and he has to go through the basement. And what he turns around, and all he sees is that neighbor with his crooked smile, with a sign of evil in it. Now, he started chasing him. Now Nick was running as fast as he can through the halls, running for dear life, hoping that he would never be caught. But his heart sunk when he saw that door with 3 locks. He turns around, and the neighbor catches him. Then, we move on to Act 2. Now, we had been in his basement for a while because he locked us in there. And, hold on, let me load into this. We've been locked into the basement for a long time. He puts us in the same room that the boy was in. And as you could tell that we've been beat up, because we had blood all over our knee and stuff, but the boy could feel our pain. And the boy, which for some reason was a cardboard cutout, helped us escape, because he felt our pain, and he felt bad for us. Now in the basement, you could see signs of things that he hid that the neighbor hid to keep from himself, so he would not remember the things that happened in his life, like the doll that Maya had, and Maya was gone, and he would hate to remember what horrid thing had happened to her, so he just locked all these things down the basement. Now us, Nikki, have to travel out of the basement, and we simply just have a job of escaping. Now, I don't want to go through all of this because it's like really complex, and it would take out a ton of time for explaining in this video. So we escape, and as we run out, there's evil look on his smile, and we escape. And that's when we move on to Act 3. Now, we had grown up and moving out of the house, and we had an apartment, but we still never forgot the day that we were trapped, and all those days he suffered in that basement, and the day he escaped. Now, one day, he woke up and walked around his house and began to try to start his day. He was about to do something. Wait. Sorry, I'm just waiting for it to activate. Sorry, my baby brother's around here. Okay, sorry, but we hear a knocking on our door, and we have a letter. Now we pick it up, and it says that we cannot keep this apartment. We're running out of money, and we have to get out. So he decides he needs to go back to his old place. So he packs all his things, and he goes. Now, on the long drive there, we recognize everything. All the happy times we had here, remembering this very street that he went down, that he always went down as a kid, at. But once he got here, he looked and remembered everything. So he decided to go investigate to see what had happened. The house had been taken down, but he wondered why. And then, that's when a fear came to us, which was the Shadow Guy. The Shadow Guy is all our fears piled up into one scary feeling, and it will never leave us alone. Ever. Until we conquer our fears. So, we try not to think about it, even though we're still thinking about it. But we try to take our mind off it. We walk into the house and try to remember all the good times we had in here. He remembered all these things, all these pictures that he remembered as a kid. But he heard something from the outside. And then suddenly, his phone started ringing. He got terrified. So, but then he told himself, it's just a phone call. So he picked up the phone. He looked outside and he saw his fear. He tries not to think about it. Doesn't ever want to remember that again. And he just goes to sleep. Now, he wakes up, but it's a little bit different. You see, I'll show you once we load in. Now, we look, we see that our house is just like how we were as a little kid. Confused, we went outside, and we saw this. Minutes ago, when like hours ago, he thought that that his house had been torn down, that he was gone for good, but he was right back there. The one that the fear that terrified him the most, the neighbor. Now, you might be thinking, oh no, how the heck did this happen? How did the neighbor come back? How did he really build this? The answer is, he never built it back. This place, all the giant stuff was never there. It's still torn up, and our house is still the same. Now you're probably wondering, Camera Drone, what do you mean by that? What I'm saying is that this is a dream. Yes, you heard me right, a dream. Now, this is a dream that this nightmare put us in, and how we and you're probably wondering, well, how big is this house? Is this house so big? It basically stands for how big. So basically, how big the house is how much fear we have to conquer. And as you can see, we have to conquer a lot of fear. So that's why we have to go through these obstacles. Getting over the fear, getting over the neighbor, getting over our childhood. And we finally make it into the basement. And we see fear crawling right next to us. We avoid fear, which is a big step of conquering his fears. And we made it to Act Final, which, this is embarrassing, I don't have that unlocked yet. I've never really tried to unlock this, because I always loved investigating Act 3 and what it meant. That's why I love uploading this series. And I'm just going to tell you what happened. We make it into the basement, and we appear in a small little house with the cardboard cutout of the boy. I think his name is Eric or something. I'm just gonna call him Eric because I think that's his name. If I'm wrong, then I have a lot to learn. But I'm just gonna call him Eric. A cardboard cutout of Eric as a kid was standing right in front of us. And suddenly, a giant hand swoops and crashes the entire roof and almost all the walls of the house. Now, we look up, and we see a giant neighbor. Now, you're probably wondering, why would this be in the dream? Well, you see, you're probably wondering, why would this be in the dream? Well, you see, the dream knew that he avoided him. It was all a part of this fear's phase. The fear knew it, and the fear was mad that he could slip away from him that easily. So he tried to think of the biggest fear, and I was dealing with it and all along, running away from it. Throughout this entire time, when I try to conquer my fears, I'm still running away from my biggest fear, the neighbor. The fear has a great idea. He plans to make his fear, but so much bigger, that he'll obviously give up and live in the fear that he remembered as a child forever. Now, when but us obviously found a way to get around this. We noticed there was a giant house on his back, And that stands for, I'm not, yeah, you don't even have to ask. The house on his back stands for the burden of all the neighbor's fears. Now, you see, the burden was on the neighbor. You're probably wondering, there should be a burden on us. We're facing our fears right now. But you're half right. We are facing our fears, but it's not just us. It's the neighbor. Because he fears because of what happened to his wife, what happened to his daughter, what must be done to his son. He was afraid of all of it. Now, the neighbor, so it was a burden on him because of fear that you notice he never had tried to have another family again. He was afraid that he'd have to go through that pain again, and he didn't want to go through it. But simply, that's just part of life, and he's just putting more pain on himself than what he'd feel if that happened again. It's like hurting himself from keeping himself to move on. You see, he never moved on because he's dead. Because in the real life, you never saw him there. People probably finally found him and, well, put him down. And Eric, who knows what happened to him. But we find anyways, back to act final. We find our way around and go into the door of this ginormous house. But when we walk in, it's even bigger. Now, when we walk in, there's tons of, you could see everything that's inside the burden. Tons of missing posters of his daughter and his son. Thousands of them scattered across the entire humongous house. And then there's a fence that shows the outside. Now Nikki looks out the window and sees the fear. Now, where's the fear? It shows a picture of the neighbor crying outside. The fear was right there. So the fear was in both the neighbor and the player. Because of what happened to everything that happened into the neighbor's life, what happened to be what had happened to his family, and Nikki was afraid of what the neighbor did to take out his anger to him. Now, there was a door that we opened, and the fear. We see our kids' selves about exactly the same age when we got stuck in the basement by the neighbor, and the fear. Now this fear was humongous. Grown-up Nick had to face through obstacles to block our fear, and every single time he blocked an attack from his young self, he got bigger. This simply means that he's conquering his fears more and more and more, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Finally, with being big enough, the fear goes away. Now, we've conquered our fear. That's great. But what happened to the neighbor? He still hasn't. He had never conquered his fear. That's why you're in a pitch white area and you see a house. The same looking, almost identical to the burden on the neighbor's back. And you saw the neighbor. He finds you. You're surprised that he sees you. He tries to call his name, but he knows it's no use. Because the fear was on the other side of the door, banging. Now all we could do is walk through the door, and we wake up. And that's the end of it. Now, I really like this story of Hello Neighbor. It's very, like, has a lot of symbolism, and I love dealing with symbolism. And today was it was personally one of my favorite ever videos. But sadly, guys, this is the last episode of part 1. But don't worry, guys. When Hello Neighbor 2 comes out, we are going to start making part 2 videos. Now, I've seen people like get it early to make sure it's good, for them to make sure it's good. And I've watched videos about it. It's super interesting. Now, when this game comes out, which is December 9th, I believe, so it's gonna take like quite a bit, but don't worry, guys. When it comes out, we're gonna do it. We're probably gonna do it. And but it's pretty cool. It probably has a lot more symbolism, and it's way harder, which I honestly love. I love solving mysteries. I love all of it. Now, today, I think that this entire story means a lot and has a lesson to it as well. To always, you can always conquer your fears no matter what happens, and don't let fear take control of you. Don't let fear rule you. Let fear be ruled over by you. I mean, I don't know if... What I'm saying is, don't let fear rule you. You rule fear. Never let it get to the best of you, no matter what. Now, this is amazing, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you do it, great. If you don't do it, that's okay too. Now, see you if we ever do a part 2, and see you in the next one. Bye, guys.